Hello again. This is going to be a really short video concerning the regulator clock build. Just as a refresher remark, this regulator clock is being developed from a book by Peter Hyman, which is available for anybody that's interested. That particular book has plans for 2 different regulator clocks, and this happens to be one of them. We're nearing completion of the movement build. Last time we had a first test run. This time I've worked on it quite a bit since that time, but done very little. Mainly reset the pallet depth and get it in beat, and you know, a bunch of little small things that needed done. Make some of the additional adjustments, but basically the overall clock was just fine on the last test run. So it is running for multiple days now with no problem. And so I haven't regulated it, but according to my my clock timer app on my cell phone, it's within a few seconds a day. So I haven't fooled with that part of it yet. The other thing I haven't fooled with is the weight. I started off with 4.5 pounds, which obviously wasn't enough, and I made some pieces that I could add on to the bottom of that weight to increase or decrease the amount of weight. So it looks like it's going to take about 6 pounds to run this clock, and that might be a little in excess. I don't know. I'm not sure, but anyway, it is running successfully now with a little over 6 pounds. So it's just fine. I don't want to change that right now. Eventually I will probably try to decrease the weight and see what it will run with, but because excessive weight may cause excessive wear over multiple years, but I doubt it makes that much difference. Anyway, so you can see the escapement. It's really hard to show this clock movement because the plates, the main plates are very close together, so there's hardly any way to show the actual movement. The plates are pretty much solid, so you know, it's pretty hard to see. But there it is. There's the top of the clock, and it is, like I say, it is successfully running. I temporarily made a couple sets of a set of hands for it. You can see the second hand going around at the top, and there's an hour hand at the bottom that makes one rotation every 12 hours. And those hands are on separate dials. The main dial is about 10 inches. The 2 little separate dials are about 3+ inches, I guess. So maybe that'll be the next step. You know, I don't know. But anyway, that's where we're at on the movement, and it is running just fine. So I found some things in the book that I wasn't too pleased with, but basically overall the book was quite well written and quite good. Setting up the pallets was a little bit difficult for me. The book gave some general information on that, but I figured after working with it that the book's information wasn't exactly right. So anyway, I did get the pallets all set up. They are working quite well, so I don't have any problem with that. So that's about it on the regulator movement. I did bring out another movement over the last couple weeks to take a look at. It's a clock that I built, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, or it's been quite a while now. And it's called, I think it's called an American Clock Movement. And for anybody that's interested in building a clock, that clock is a really good learning experience. I've probably built that clock twice. But anyway, that clock runs very successfully. It keeps time, and so I never did put it in a case. It was in a box. It's been in a box for 4 or 5 years. I took it out just to see how it ran, and I set it up, and it took off, and it's been running ever since. So it's good. Let me shut the video off, and I'll move over to that clock. It's on the same bench. In fact, maybe I can, but I don't think I can zoom in on it from this far away. You can see it in the background there. Yeah, I can. So there it is in the background. That was built from a book by, let's see, what was his name? Let's see. That was built from a book by a fellow by the name of Stephen Conover. And maybe somehow I can show the book. I don't know. Set it back here. And let's see here. That clock, you know, is pretty simple little clock. It's got a spring in it that runs it. You can see the spring there. I guess that clock will run quite a while. I started off trying to see just how long I could get it to run, and I think I was up to a couple weeks. But I think it's supposed to be a 1 week between winds. And I see there's one wheel. I probably built all these wheels 2 or 3 times, at least twice. I know I built the arbors twice. I started off with using some harder material for the arbors, and then I ended up with tool steel or silver steel for those. But anyway, it was successful. I ended up putting, I think most of the wheels are running on ball bearings. And that was not because I needed to do it or I had to do it. It was just because it was an experiment with some bearings that were, I think it was Butterworth clocks, or somebody had those, what they call butter bearings or something. Anyway, I set up the bearings in most of the initial larger wheels. In fact, I think probably all the wheels have bearings except for the escape wheel. Those bearings really weren't necessary in reality, but like I say, that was just an experiment. And so that's, let's see if I can zoom out. You can see in the background, there's some things in the way, but that's the book. It's called Building an American Clock Movement, and at the bottom it says Stephen G. Conover. I think you can find that book on somewhere on the internet. I'm sure he still sells that book, and it's quite good, and it's a nice little learning experience. And actually, it's in some ways it's more complicated than the big regulator clock, the build. So you do learn quite a bit from it, and it's a simple little clock. The materials aren't terrifically expensive, and so it's a nice thing a nice learning experience. I have another book that I purchased from the same person, that clock movement, I don't have it out to show you, but that clock movement was written by Stephen Conover too, and it's called Making a Foliot Clock. And if you want, that's a fun clock to build. It's very simple clock, really neat experience. It's not as good a learning experience, I don't think, as the other one is, but it's guaranteed to run. It runs off of weight, so, and I built it and mounted it and ran it, and I never went back and looked at it twice. It ran from the day one. It worked perfect. There was never any fiddling with it or anything. It's a bulletproof little movement to build. However, it does not keep good time. It keeps terrible time. And I think I did fool around with that, trying to get it to keep better time, but you got to wind it every day. You got to pull the string or pull the rope every day or pull the chain or whatever you've got on it there. And it was a nice little movement to build. And I don't think I can zoom in on the picture. Let's see if I can. Oh, there's a picture of it. It's kind of a neat little thing. I did build the I did make the dial for it, and it ran out here in the shop for, I don't know, I had it running for a year or so out here, and finally it was in my way, so I packed it in a box and I haven't taken it out since. But anyway, that might be of interest to somebody. And then let me put the book up again as kind of a the Regulator Clock book was written by Peter Hyman, and you can see that book in the background there too. And that the clock that's pictured on the front of that the book is the other clock, not the one I built. So the plates are a little bit different, but and that clock basically has all the same elements in it. It's built the same way basically, but I think it might run. That might be able to run for a couple weeks without winding, rather than 1 week. I think this clock that I'm building is 8 days, if I remember right. So there's that book, and so if anybody's interested, but that's a little bit more advanced build. I would recommend building the American clock movement. That's a really good first build for anybody interested in building a clock. So anyway, let me move the camera. Let's see if I can move this down in here again and zoom in on this. You can see let's see, I don't think I can get a shot of it. It's pretty dark in there. You can see the pendulum rod and the crutch forks down in there, but pretty hard to see. I had to adjust get the pallets adjusted, get the bead adjusted. Oh, there's the crutch forks. You can see those through there. You got to get the crutch forks adjusted, and that's the main things I did. I've had the clock apart 100 times at least. So actually, once you start working on these clocks, you can take them apart and put them together in a few minutes. It doesn't take very long. You can completely strip this down and put it back together in 30 minutes. It's not a hard job to do. So, but when you're building a clock, you end up taking it apart and putting it together a lot of different times. So with that, I'll call this a wrap. And once I get something else done on this regulator clock, we'll make an update. But at this point, it is running for multiple days successfully, and I guess I'm ready to try to build a dial for it. So my lathe really isn't big enough to turn a 10-inch dial, so I'll have to figure out what to do there. But I think that is probably the next step on this clock. I never build cabinets for clocks, so this might be a first. I don't know. But even the little American clock up there, I never built a cabinet for it. So that's just a mantle clock. Doesn't take a very big cabinet. Actually, it's would be quite a simple woodworking project for somebody. And that if somebody, you can buy old antique cabinets, that clock would fit right into one of them, I'm sure, with no problem. So we'll take a look at that clock again. And it's kind of nice. I haven't had to move the camera, so that's good. I was kind of afraid you really can't see too much without moving the camera. But that little American clock has got all the elements, you know. In fact, it's got like, I think it's got like 4 wheels. The escape wheel. It's got a setup for the hands and the mainspring. So it's got all the elements in it. You need, basically, you can make all the cutters for the wheels pretty easily. I didn't buy any cutters to make that. They were just, you know, ground on the bench grinder out of some HSS. So you can make all the cutters. I think there's 3 different cutters. One for the wheels, and one for the ratchet, and one for the escape wheel. So, in fact, I probably used the same cutters on the regulator clock to make the escape wheel and the ratchets. However, I did purchase a gear cutter for the teeth on the regulator clock, because they were quite a bit smaller teeth, and so it just took, it was just one gear cutter, which I purchased probably from P.P. Thornton over in the UK. They sell good gear cutters over there. Anyway, that's kind of a wrap, and so we'll get back later with you and give you an update on the regulator clock as it comes further along. I'm going to keep going on it, and I'm not going to start any new projects right now. I'm going to try to get this wrapped up. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.